Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. I always have respect for people who do like a complete 180 professionally when they're, mid or even later on in their particular career, right? I mean, it takes a lot to do something completely different after you've been doing it for a while, right?
You got to reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but people do it.
Well, with God, all things are possible, including an Atlanta police officer becoming the founder of a Christian school for troubled youth in West Virginia. That's the story of Stephen Finn. It's a remarkable one that I first learned about by reading a profile on him in Epoch Times. He joins us now to talk about this directional shift mid-career. Stephen Finn is the founder and executive director of the Chestnut Mountain Ranch School in West Virginia. Thanks for joining us, Steve. Appreciate it.
It's good to be here, Dan and Amy. Thank you for having me.
So tell us, how does an Atlanta cop start a Christian school in West Virginia?
Yeah, it was something I never expected. I had 12 years of law enforcement in Metro Atlanta. Absolutely loved what I did. It was a calling on my life. I thought I was going to be an officer for the rest of my days, and God throws you a curveball sometimes, and fortunately enough, my wife and I were paying attention when that came, and we started, just these what-if conversations. We saw a lot of kids entering the system. We saw a lot of kids making poor decisions that were cutting their life short, and it was stirring conversation with my wife and I, like, what if we did more? What if we could get upstream from this and help these children? And we didn't even know what we were talking about at the time, but you don't know until you start knocking. And so we started checking things out, and we found a Christian children's home in Georgia. We fell in love with it. We decided to go jump in. We became a house parent for 3 years at this facility called Eagle Ranch, and that's where the vision began to get traction for West Virginia. Once we saw a program that worked, once we saw a program that was not only turning the lives of these children around, but was restoring families. And I was seeing it as an officer. I was seeing these programs, these kids being adjudicated for 4 to 6 months, and they were basically just being warehoused, and nothing was taking place in their heart or their home. And here's this private Christian program just north of Atlanta that was knocking it out of the park. And the what-if conversation started again about what if we took this somewhere in the country where the need is the highest. And my wife, she's crazier than I am, and she said, let's do it. And so we did the research, and West Virginia came up as having the highest statistics for children in foster care and other areas of at-risk situations. And so we decided to go after it in 2005.
Wow. How did COVID play into this? Because a lot of kids were, at home on their laptops.
Well, we've got a degree of children out of school and truancy issues, and obviously the opioid epidemic here in West Virginia is the worst in the country. And so you've got all these adults that are going into the system or passing away, and you've got all these kids that are being raised by grandparents or going into the foster care. And so the system's overloaded anyway, and then COVID hits, and you've got just a accelerated degree of isolation. And so these kids are just getting so far behind in school. And of course, our phones started ringing on the backside of COVID with just families that were crying out for help. They just didn't know. They just didn't know how to get their child out of a rut back into a degree of normalcy. And these kids were shutting down.
Well, wait a second. We skipped over some things here. So we're in Georgia. We're being a house family, and we're seeing a model that works. And then we decide we're going to go to West Virginia to replicate it or scale what we saw in Georgia. Well, so I take it from the article, you guys didn't have a lot of venture capital lying around. So, how do you do that? I mean, how do you go from Georgia to West Virginia and open a school and operate the school and so on and so forth? I mean, that's there's still a lot missing in how that comes to be.
Oh, there's a lot missing there. Yeah. So, and I'll try to go through it quickly.
Take your time.
It comes down to prayer and petition, and we decided, hey, if God's in this thing, He's in it. If He's not, He's not. And so I don't have a fundraising background. I don't have a public speaking background. I was an officer that had a heart for kids, and we jumped in. And so we decided, okay, we're moving to the poor state with this huge vision. How are we going to do this? And we decided, let's do this debt-free. Let's not ask for money. If God's in this, we're going to pray it in, and if it's not, in 12 months, we're going to shut it down. But I knew I needed to be here, so we moved here. We packed up the U-Haul and the kids. We bought a little house in West Virginia, and we just got here. And so that first year was rough. I thought I had made a big mistake. We got down to $25 in our bank account at one point. We were $25.54 away from tapping out and moving back to Georgia, and that was my deal with God. I said, hey, if this thing goes on the other side of the finances, we're done. And He just stripped us down to nothing. And in our last hour, when we're getting ready to pull out, because we couldn't find anybody that was willing to sell us land without going to a bank, and this whole vision seemed like it was collapsing. And in the final hour, I get the phone call. And there's this property the gentleman wants to meet. He gives us a price.
Wow.
And what I didn't realize was that there was people watching us. A lot of people. I had about 88 people on my mailing list when this thing started. It was basically my mom's Christmas card list. It was Uncle Doyle and just people that we knew. But what we didn't realize was there was a lot of people that heard about us, that found out, and people were just peeking over the fence to see what was going to happen. And when this property got in our crosshairs, this miracle unfolded, and we went from 0 to 90, and we bought the property debt-free in about 9 weeks. So we went from moving back to Georgia to being on the map, and this thing started rolling out.
And then getting the word out and getting enough trust of families that are looking for a schooling alternative for their kids that they put their trust in you guys with their kids, with their boys.
That's right. So we've got 300 acres. We've got when we bought the land, there wasn't even a trail into the property. We had to develop everything, and people started showing up. Corporations, Coca-Cola came in heavy. We've had churches from Atlanta, churches from West Virginia, all over the East Coast. The story got out, and people started coming and helping us hack into this land and build roads, and then the buildings. If you go on our website, you'll see how beautiful our facility is. But it's been by the hand of many.
Wow.
Like right now, we've got 21 college kids here from Boston that are here on their spring break. They decided to come here and help us build the 4th boys' home. We've got 4 homes on the property right now. We have a vision to build 3 more. We're doing this debt-free. We've got a beautiful school on the property that's big enough for 60 children, and that we can grow into it as we add more homes. Our school is nationally accredited, and we've got a chapel on the property that went up 2 years ago. And we hope to break ground on a gymnasium later this year.
This is like
I want to go.
This is like Field of Dreams stuff. Like I'm waiting for you to tell me that Joe Jackson showed up.
Well, what's one of your success stories for your kids? I know you take in troubled teens, but have any of them, just tell us about one of your success stories.
Well, so our very first boy, when you open a facility, you're going to take any kid that shows up at first, and so we had some pretty rough kids in the early days. But I can remember our very first boy that came through here. He had a lot going against him. Family issues. He had some physical disabilities. And I just thought, man, what's this kid going to do when he gets older? He was just always it just seemed like he always had everything going against him. And he was a handful. And at about 16 years old, something happened. He was with us for almost 5 years. He ended up growing up here, and he began to mature. His speech cleared up because he had a speech impediment. He had some issues with his arms. They straightened out. He just became this man, and now he is a police officer here in West Virginia. He's actually the chief of police in a small town, and he comes by all the time in uniform with his patrol car, and it puts me in the humble seat every time I see him roll onto the property, because I'm like, okay, God just fed me a big piece of humble pie, because in the early days I thought, man, I'm not sure what this kid's going to do. And we've got a lot more stories like that. We've got kids in the military. We've got kids. We've got one young man with the FBI. A lot of our kids have gone into trade schools. They've gotten into there's just a lot of work out there, and these kids can jump into welding or plumbing, heavy machinery operating, and be making a good living right out of 18, 19 years old. Statistically, the population of kids that we're dealing with, these kids would not be graduating high school if they weren't at the ranch. They wouldn't be here. They wouldn't be graduating high school, and they'd be in the judicial system at some level. We've had over 100 kids go through our program since we took the first kid in 2011, and 91% of the children that have gone through our school have graduated high school and have moved on to higher, whether it's trade school or higher education.
It's interesting too, because so you come from Atlanta and working for Atlanta PD, so you're in this urban environment. Now you're in this rural environment, and I just with kids. So kids are largely different races: white versus black, West Virginia versus Metro Atlanta.
Right.
But it's the same problems, right? It's the same challenges.
It boils down to these children want to be seen. They want to be heard. They need a father and a mother. We hear all this talk today about homelessness and dealing with the mental health issues and incarceration rates. But if you go upstream from that, it goes into the foster care system. Like so many of these people that we need to help have been in the foster care system, or they've been in a fatherless or parentless situation where somebody other than their parents have raised them, and that's a tough situation for a child to deal with. And so as they age out, they're gravitating towards people groups that or decisions that are unhealthy and putting them in bad places. So we're trying to get upstream from even that, and deal with the what's causing these issues, and how can we get the community behind this to step in? How can we get the church behind this to step in and work with government officials to support those in foster care, work with those children in foster care, build more facilities like Chestnut Mountain Ranch, where these children have a safe haven to grow up and be part of a loving home for a season of their life, where they're experiencing unconditional love, they're experiencing structure, they're experiencing a work ethic, and they're realizing that there's a God in heaven that knows them by name, and that He's got a plan and a purpose for their life.
I tell you, it's really interesting too, because it's how leadership builds consensus, or maybe uncovers consensus. So you go there, and it's a smaller town setting. I imagine, I'm not well versed in West Virginia, and people hear about, wait, what are they doing? What? And then they're watching you guys, as you later found out. So everybody knew there was a problem. Everybody knew what the problem was. And then you come in with an idea, and then the community rallies around the idea, and then you get help from far and wide, and from Atlanta Falcons that you didn't expect, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's just such a fascinating example of of vision, basically.
I mean, it took some time. It took some time to get kind of accepted into the Appalachian culture.
I'm sure. And to put everything on the line, too, to pursue this vision that's in service of others, and, of course, in service of the Maker. But, just outstanding. So pleased to speak with you, and wish you great congratulations on your success and continued good work. Stephen Finn is the founder and executive director of Chestnut Mountain Ranch in West Virginia. Steve Finn, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan and Amy, thank you so much. It's an honor.
Thank you. God bless you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
At Signature Bank, going the distance for business banking customers is what we do every day. We understand that business owners have a strategic mission, a drive to succeed, a plan for growth, and don't have time to wait.